All right, good morning again. I see it looks like we've slowed down on the members coming in. So good morning again. My name is Moya Panda, Chair of the CJCC. I want to welcome you to the October 3rd meeting. The minutes from our August 1st meeting were sent out via email. And as you know, at the August meeting, we had presentations from Joanna Petros, Chief of the Juvenile Unit in Anne Arundel County State's Attorney's Office. We also had a presentation from Captain Elizabeth Smith from the Community Relations Division. And we also had a presentation from Christopher Klein of the Department Detention Facilities. And are there any changes to those minutes that were sent out by Ms. Rogers for the August 1st meeting? Okay, having seeing no changes, we'll adopt the August minutes by general consent. And then the agenda was sent out for today's meeting. On the agenda for today is a presentation from Lieutenant Shire from the Anne Arundel County Police Department, as well as Dr. Brown from the AACO Partnership for Children and Youth and Families, and other members of her staff as well. But before I begin the presentations, there seems to be some confusion about the webinar format. So Ms. Rogers did send out an email to you all regarding why this is the format that we use. This is to limit any disruption, inappropriate disruption with audio or visual from members of the public. So you are assigned as a panelist, whether or not you are presenting. And if you come in under the public link, you will be unable to interact with the presentation and ask any questions. So if there's any other questions, please feel free to email me or Ms. Rogers. We want to make sure that this meeting is not interrupted unnecessarily. So that's why this format has been a directive for any boards and commissions in Anne Arundel County to have it in a webinar format. With that being said, I know Lieutenant Shire has to get over to the Police Academy today, so I want to go ahead and get his presentation started. Welcome again, Lieutenant Shire.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good to be here. So I was asked real quick to just go over some of the updated criminal statutes and other associated things that went into effect a couple days ago. For those that don't know, most criminal charges, that includes traffic charges, the legislature sets those to go into effect October 1st of every year. And we do, as an agency, have legislative updates that go out to our officers and so that they're aware of these charges. So I'm just going to run through a few of them. There's not a lot of big changes this year. Some years we get pretty large changes, but there's not a whole lot this year. One of the major ones, the larger ones that did get passed, is a new charge for organized retail theft because of the shoplifting issues that have been kind of plaguing the communities in Maryland. A new felony has been established for organized retail theft when the value of the theft exceeds $1,500, which is the normal threshold for a felony theft case in general. What happens is the suspects are moving between multiple counties. Normally, each individual theft would have to be charged in that individual county, but if we can establish that it's part of an organized retail theft scheme and continuing course of conduct, we can group all those cases together and prosecute them in any one of those counties where the theft occurred. So that's just a tool in our toolbox to help combat those organized retail theft rings. There was some reduction in penalty changes for things like drug paraphernalia and some cannabis-related violations. There is a change to some of the visual surveillance charges that exist already. So there's a charge for visual surveillance with prurient intent. So when they slightly expanded the prohibition on conducting visual surveillance in order to see into protected areas, private places, by use of a camera and things like that. There was some clarification in that law as well. For animal crimes, they specified that for crimes against animals, each animal harmed is a separate offense. The animal becomes somewhat of a victim in those cases, so that
we can't hear. I don't think any of us can hear.
That is weird. So I'm able to hear Lieutenant Shire, so I'm not sure what is going on. Let me just see. Jen, is there any issues on your end that you see? But I'm able to hear him clearly.
Yeah, I'm able to hear him clearly as well.
So Catherine can't, Elizabeth can't, I can't.
Oh, wow.
There's a whole group of us that cannot hear.
It's clear, but it's very, very faint.
Sure.
That time I didn't.
Okay, so if you can, everyone turn up their
I
volume. and also-
tried, that didn't
Sorry.
work.
That didn't work either. And Lieutenant Shaw, if you can turn your volume up as well.
I can try, if you
maybe.
need it, I can try and log in a different device. Maybe there's an issue with the microphone.
Sorry.
Okay, he's gonna try and log in with a different device.
Give me one moment. All right, is that better for everybody?
Yes, that's a lot better.
Okay, all right. So I might be appearing twice, but if everybody can hear me, then that's great. Do you want me to start over? Were you
If
able
you
to hear me
could-
at the beginning?
If you could please start over, yeah, thank
All
you.
right, I apologize. All right, so just going over some of the criminal law changes that went into effect October 1st. The first one that I mentioned was organized retail theft. We have a problem in Maryland with shoplifters, and they move from county to county using the same kind of tactics and techniques to steal the way it was. Each individual theft would have to be charged in each county. This new law allows us to aggregate all of those. And as long as the total value of all the thefts exceeds $1,500, all those thefts can be charged and prosecuted in one jurisdiction, one county. So it allows us to tackle those all at once as opposed to piecemeal. There were some reduction in penalties for possessing CDS, controlled dangerous substance paraphernalia, and also for other cannabis-related violations. There was some clarification and changes to the laws relating to visual surveillance with prurient intent to make sure that we can charge those accurately. This is people who are conducting visual surveillance onto people's property, into their homes, to what would be considered a private area for the individual. There were some clarifications to some of the animal crimes so that each animal would be classified kind of as a separate victim. So there can be multiple charges when there's multiple animals. There's a new charge for interference with a public safety answering point. This is basically your 911 operators. So that helps us with folks who may seek to interrupt or impair the function of our 911 systems. That is a felony, a 5-year felony. Obviously, diminishing our ability to take 911 calls is a huge problem for public safety. There's a new criminal law against destroying funerary objects and cemetery elements. This is a misdemeanor, but just clarifies, it gives us another tool for damaging, destroying objects or structures in cemeteries or removing them from the grounds. There is kind of in line with the visual surveillance charge. They updated the criminal harassment charge. Harassment is usually a continuing course of conduct that's designed to annoy somebody or just severely bother them. The charge has been expanded to allow for visual surveillance of another to be part of that course of conduct. So somebody who's conducting visual surveillance into an area where somebody has a reasonable expectation of privacy, that could be used as part of the justification for the harassment charge. And they also expanded what the judges can do when they're issuing peace orders for folks based on acts of visual surveillance. There's an update to the trafficking of regulated firearms. Regulated firearms include handguns and assault rifles and things like that. It reclassifies the trafficking to a felony for those regulated firearms, previously a misdemeanor. There were some updates to what is required for us to do forensic genealogical DNA analysis and search. It requires officers to submit a sworn affidavit and prosecutorial approval. So a state's attorney has to approve these searches, adds to some of the information to make sure that we're not using this as a random tool in the law enforcement profession. That's most of the criminal law updates. Like I said, there's not a lot of big ones. There were a few under traffic law. We kind of talk about them separately, traffic law and criminal law, although all traffic laws are technically classified as misdemeanors. Some of these are kind of helpful. Things like it was previously, whether people realize it or not, it wasn't legal to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk. So things like bicycles, play vehicles, and unicycles, you were supposed to ride those wheeled vehicles in the roadway. So they changed the law to authorize the riding of bicycles, play vehicles on the sidewalk unless a local ordinance prohibits it. So it gives local jurisdictions the ability to ban that. But those vehicles do have to yield right of way to pedestrians. So pedestrians still take priority. There were some changes to the laws about obscured, modified, or blocked registration plate covers that allow them to, in certain circumstances, only be enforced as a secondary offense. So if the police officer pulls somebody over for speeding or running a stop sign or a taillight out, that's when they can also enforce the obscured, modified, blocked registration plate violations as well. A big one that was it's called the Sergeant Patrick Kemp Act. Changes our reckless driving charge. A lot of people are aware that in Virginia, you can get arrested for reckless driving, for driving too fast. We didn't quite match that charge. In Maryland, you're not going to be able to be arrested on scene for a reckless driving act, but the charge now, which previously had $1,000 fine maximum, now carries the possibility of jail time. So it's not arrestable, but if you're found guilty of reckless driving, you now face the possibility of some time in jail. And they also modified the charge to say that 30 miles an hour of the speed limit automatically qualifies as reckless driving. So if you're doing, 85 miles an hour in that 55 mile an hour zone, you could face jail time for that. There was also a charge that all the police departments supported, not a charge, a change that all the police departments supported to allow for the MVA to put an indicator on driver's licenses for folks that have what might be called a hidden disability, things that are a non-obvious disability, so that when they present their license, we know that somebody might have a mental handicap or physical handicap that isn't obvious to us, so that we can make sure that we recognize that and take that into consideration in our interaction with that particular motorist or person. And finally, another thing that we've informed our officers about that's very helpful to us is for our peer support programs. We have a lot of officers who are trained in peer support. Mental health of officers is become a touchstone issue for us, especially with 21st century policing. And previously, peer support officers who are assisting with the mental health of their peers could be compelled to testify against those that they're providing support for. This law prohibits those peer support officers from being forced to testify. There's obviously exceptions if the peer support officer knows about some criminal conduct or a life safety danger or threat or things like that. The peer support officer would be obviously obligated to report those things. But that's the long and the short of it. Thankfully, there was not a whole lot this year. Some years we get slammed with a lot of changes. So we've got to change gears in our brain. Not a lot this year, but I do know that everybody's either excited or fearful of that reckless driving charge. So do keep that one in mind. And that's what I got. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to do what I can to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that presentation. Do we have any questions for Lieutenant Shire? I'm not seeing anybody. I do have a question for next year. Is there anything on the horizon that you're aware of for the legislative session regarding traffic laws or any criminal laws that you know of so far?
Yeah, it's difficult to predict. There was a healthy discussion this year about secondary offenses and which violations police officers can make traffic stops for, and how that those particular violations affect our communities. That was part of the change regarding the obscured blocked registration plate covers. Unfortunately, it's difficult to predict what will be brought up again. We've been at, for the past few years, a record number of bills being introduced in the General Assembly. So there's only a limited amount of time. So there's always new issues that come up. I wish I could predict, but that would maybe make some of our lives easier. But I don't have a crystal ball on that one. So we'll have to wait for the session to start this January, which is always an exciting time.
All right, no problem. Completely understand. If there's no other questions for Lieutenant Shire, I'll let him get over to the police academy to teach, I think, criminal law today, correct?
Yep, criminal law to our recruit class.
All righty. Any further questions? All right, I think you're free to go. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
No problem. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, and next on the agenda, we have Dr. Pamela Brown. She'll be giving a presentation on the DJS diversion programs.
Good morning, everybody. I think Jennifer's going to run my slides, or at least I hope she is. There we go. For many of you, this will be a reminder of the work the Partnership for Children, Youth and Families does, so I'm not going to take a long time with my slides. I have my staff here this morning, and I'll introduce them as I go. And then at the end, if you have questions, they can help me answer them, and they always answer them better than me because they have real live examples of how this stuff plays out. So the partnership both offers in-house programs, and we also fund programs. Currently, our in-house programs you can see, and our funded community programs you can see. I don't need to read those slides. I will talk about them as I go. So next slide, please. I'm glad. There we go. So the Racial and Ethnic Diversity Committee used to be called the DMC Committee, and there will be people on this Zoom call who remember disproportionate minority contact in the juvenile services system. And we used to follow the RRI, as it was called, over years to figure out where the disparities were, especially for our African-American youth. And we've been doing that since 2009. I think probably about 6 years ago, the title was changed to the Racial and Ethnic Diversity Committee, or RED Committee. There's one at the state level, and there is some in counties in the state. We kept ours going, and we'll always keep ours going because there are still disparities in the juvenile justice system, specifically here in Anne Arundel County for African-American youth. They are still arrested at over 3 times the rate of other youth. So we meet quarterly now. We have diverse representation. We look at the research. We look at all of the data, all the way from the disproportionality in the school system to the disproportionality in the juvenile services system. And then we look for diversion programming that will actually address the disparities, not just diversion programming that diverts everyone. But we've always said if you have disparities, then you have to look for diversion programs that disproportionately divert. It's just some of the figures that we collect. We collect many, many different kinds of data related to what's happening to our youth. Ty Thompson is our Juvenile Services Director. He's here today, and he will answer questions for you. He's coordinated the RED Committee from the very beginning, since 2009. He also actually runs, as well as supervising all his staff, our mental health mentoring program, which I'll talk about in a second. Next slide, please. So we at the partnership like to think of diversion in terms of the earliest possible place that we can get. And so if we can get to youth when they're struggling, when they have mental health issues, when they're not doing so well, what we really want to do is avoid our youth going into the juvenile services system altogether. Because what we know is once they go into the juvenile justice system, especially African American youth, tend to go down deeper, faster than any other race or ethnicity. So if we can stop that happening, it's a really good thing. This program has existed for quite some time. It is funded by our mental health agency. It is an excellent program. We match our youth with an adult mentor. We serve ages between 12 and 21. They've got to have a mental health diagnosis. So the referrals actually come from counselors, psychiatrists, etc. It works in exactly the same way as any other mentoring program. They have an individual mentor, but they also have loads of fun. And I think, we underestimate things like fun for youth. So there's a lot of time when they get together as mentees, they do holiday dinners, picnics, field trips, and Ty and his staff organize all that and make sure that the youth stay engaged. At the moment, we have 19. The goals are set by the therapists, not by us, for what they need to happen for these young people. Most youth stay for at least 22 months, some longer. In mentoring, it's really important to have a stable relationship with a mentor. If you're really going to make a difference, you really need at least a year with any young person, with a caring adult to make a difference. But there's just a whole lot of research about why mentoring works with young people. Next slide, please. When we start talking about juvenile services, we use what's called a restorative justice model. It focuses on the needs of victims and offenders, and we like where we can to try and to have our victims as well as our offenders take an active role. There's lots of theory around why this works. It empowers victims, but it also creates a relationship between the victim and the offender. And restorative justice programs tend to be very, very successful. Next slide, please. So our big restorative justice-based program is something called conferencing. We started off only doing community conferencing, and we took referrals from our police department. But then we thought, well, wait a minute, what if we actually did it in schools first? And before our kids actually got into the juvenile services system, we could actually create conferences that would divert them from ever getting there. So that's what we did. So now we have two. We have school-based conferencing, which resolves school conflicts and reduces suspension and other targeted issues. And then in the community, it's trying to move young people away from arrest. Shay Brooks is our conferencing coordinator. She's here today. Give them a wave, Shay. Shay has had this program for many years. It is a really successful program in the community. It works that after the police have made an arrest, and it's usually a misdemeanor or a first-time offender, Shay facilitates a meeting between everybody involved in whatever has happened. So the youths themselves, if it's somebody who's had their store robbed, that person would be there, the parents and anyone else who is involved in what has happened. They all get together, Shay facilitates the group. The participants themselves decide on the reparations, what the young person is going to do to make up for the fact that they have broken the law. But one of the most, I think the most important thing is the victim gets to talk to the offender. And one of the interesting things about conferencing is how many times everybody ends up in tears. The victims, the offenders, the parents. Shay can tell wonderful stories about what happens in conferences. It's a very personal thing. It tends to be, it works extremely well with African Americans. There's a whole set of research as to why. It may be cultural, but it certainly works very well. You can see that in FY25, we diverted 84 youth through conferencing. and 95% of them with youth of color. And so that's why we say we look for programs that disproportionately divert. We've had these programs since 2011. You can see we've diverted 918 youth from the juvenile service system, and 89% of them are youth of color. The only difference in school-based conferencing is that principal makes the referrals, but the same things happen. Now, if conferences are unsuccessful, either in the community or in the school system, then the sanction stands. Then the arrest happens, or the suspension, or whatever the disciplinary measure was in the school system. So we generally tend not to have unsuccessful conferences. When they're unsuccessful, it's usually because at the last minute someone decides they don't want to participate, but that happens rarely. This is a way to really bring everyone together. So that's Shay's program. Next slide, please. And then we have our mentoring for youth who are already in the juvenile justice system. And I will tell you that our Department of Juvenile Justice took a real risk on this, because it was a program that we created in-house. It is very, very neighborhood-based. It is organized and controlled by Randy Curtis, who's our juvenile justice coordinator. And it really focuses on life skills, social skills, conflict resolution, and accountability. It's been very successful so far. In fact, thank you, Delmonica. DJS has just funded it for another year. At the moment, we have 10 youth in the program, and 100% of those youth that exited completed at least one goal in their action plan. So it's been very, very successful thus far. Next slide, please. And then we do something called peer navigation, re-entry, and after-school programs. Isaac Colbert, give him a wave. Isaac is our peer navigator. So we will use Isaac for a whole set of reasons. One of the other things that the partnership does is work with families who are facing homelessness, who are already homeless. They often have youth who have been really suffered trauma from economic issues and issues related to homelessness. So if we find in one of our families that a youth is not doing well, we will ask Isaac to work with that youth to try to bring them back into community. Same occurs if a youth is exiting DJS. We can have Isaac work with them to make sure they get back into school and make sure that they settle back into community. He also works with some of our really homegrown after-school programs. And on top of that, he's an artist. He does step dancing, he does photography, and he's currently our storyteller for a really big initiative we have in Brooklyn Park that's part of the Enough Act with Governor Moore. And Isaac does all the videos, the photographs, and tells the story of work in neighborhoods. And Isaac has been with us since he left Annapolis High and has become one of our most valuable employees. He's a great guy. Next slide, please. I think that might be it. Oh, no, it's not. So the partnership also funds programs. We're such a weird agency. We do and we fund. So you can see we fund youth empowerment services with Pastor Cheryl at Brooklyn Park and Mead. We do Black Wall Street, which is a program in Annapolis. It's with an agency called Newtown Community Development Council. You can see we try to show what happens when you use really neighborhood-based programs. You can see Pastor Cheryl, 96% of her kids increased school attendance and improved their grades. That's a huge success rate. You look at Black Wall Street, which Evola Peters, of those of you remember her, she started and she's still guiding it, although others now do some of the actual work. It's specifically for kids who are at risk of gang involvement or gang involved. And you can see that of our 37 youth in 25, no gang involvement, reconnected to work or school, and 100% of them remained in school. We do an Arts in Schools program. This is the one that Isaac works very hard with. It's operated by a real neighborhood-based guy called Ken Starks. It does all sorts of things. He serves so many kids. He's incredible. In FY25, and his rate is so cheap. You can see 203 youth participated in at least one session, experience, or field trip. 83% remained free of gang involvement, and 100% of the youth were connected to school or work. Next slide, please. So we also have an Enough initiative in Brooklyn Park. We managed to bring Big Brothers, Big Sisters back to Brooklyn Park. It's funded by the Governor's Office for Children. It's part of a demonstration project. And we also have a homeless youth program in Brooklyn Park. It's funded by the State Department of Housing and Community Development and a foundation called the O'Neill Foundation. Cindy O'Neill is local here to Anne Arundel County, and they have funded that program for many years. It is the only homeless youth program in the county. We take the kids off the street. We now, for the first time this year, have a halfway house for the kids who are not quite ready to go into an apartment. But what we tend to do, we'll get 2 kids in an apartment. We get them either to work or to college. It has been a remarkably successful program. And then we have just requested a whole load of funds for Brooklyn Park for young people. We just did a needs assessment up there that included many, many youth from Brooklyn Park. We spoke to 1,300 people to find out what was really missing. And all of the things you see listed are the things that the residents of Brooklyn Park said they needed for their kids. So we created a youth entrepreneurial program for kids who really want to be entrepreneurs, whether it be in social media or whatever they need to do. It's a really neat program. It's with our Boys and Girls Club. And there's like a Shark Tank at the end of it. It was actually created by Leadership Anne Arundel. They created the curriculum. There's a Shark Tank at the end, and the kids get $1,000 as a sort of base amount to start whatever it is they want to do. We heard a lot about our kids failing in schools and the need for after-school tutoring, not necessarily the traditional type, but tutoring done by neighborhood people who already have trust. So we'll see how that one goes. We're going to have a youth behavioral program at one of the elementaries. We're working with our mental health agency to bring youth mental health first aid to the neighborhood. We've got another couple of mentoring programs kicking off. We heard a lot about the need for sports in Brooklyn Park. So we've brought some sports programs that include sports and STEM. I think we're paying for like 80 football scholarships. And we've got a mechanics apprenticeship program that is really targeted at Hispanic youth. This is a second generation Hispanic male in our community who has done extremely well, set up his own business. It's a mechanic, he's a mechanic. And he really wanted to help young Hispanic males to find their way. And so we are hopefully funding a mechanics apprenticeship program with him. We have not heard about that funding yet, so please cross your fingers for us, because we believe it would make a huge difference to young people in Brooklyn Park. And why Brooklyn Park? Because Brooklyn Park has got the worst outcomes of any area in the county. Their poverty rate is 6 times the rate of the rest of the county. The opportunity gap is the worst there, the graduation rate, you name it. The environment is the worst. It's got the least tree canopy. It doesn't matter what I look at. It's got half the median income of the rest of the average of the county. It doesn't matter which piece of data I look at. Brooklyn Park will light it up. So 10 years ago, we went to Brooklyn Park and started creating programs. Then we became part of the governor's initiative. And now we're asking for an implementation grant to do the things that we know are needed up there. And that finally is the end of my presentation, but all my staff are here. So if you have questions for me or questions for them, please go ahead. We'll be happy to answer them. We'll tell you stories about our kids. We're very proud of our work. We think it's really making a difference. And I will say this, there are many, many more diversion programs in the county. And the problem is that we don't really know about them. So I've asked Arundelstat, which are our data people, if they will help me. Thank you for being here, Elizabeth. if they'll help me dig out all of the diversion programs so we really know, because we tend to hear all the negatives, but there are all these people working in neighborhood and making a huge difference with kids, diverting kids, getting their grades up, and they really don't get a lot of recognition for it. So we'd really like to know who's out there, who's doing the work, and I can promise you they're all doing it on a shoestring. They are doing it with very, very little money and with all of their heart. So I would really like to find a way to really gather that information so we know what's going on and we know how many young people we are serving. And with that, I really will shut up. Team, do you have anything else to offer? Ty, you got anything?
You pretty much said everything. The only one thing that we are actually now at full capacity for the mentoring program. So we have 20 youth. We have full capacity. And one thing that you hit on was big was about the year. Sometimes it just takes a full year to actually gain the trust of the young person before you can do anything, before you can work on goals, and you have to build that trust. So everything else was spot on that, Dr. Brown said.
And let me tell you, Ty has devoted his entire career to working with our young people, and he is so well respected, not just by us, but by all of our young people. So thank you, Ty, for everything you have done and will continue to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for that presentation. I'm happy that you mentioned Elizabeth's team at Arundel staff, because they did just roll out that community well-being index, and everything you're saying about Brooklyn Park is something that you can definitely see on the numbers when you're looking at it. So I obviously thank your team for, like I said, 10 years ago, going back to, and I love the idea of speaking to the 1,300 community members to see exactly what they need. It's one thing to have an idea what you think a community needs, but it's another thing to actually speak to them directly and go from there. So I want to thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Brown or anyone on her team? I do have a question for Shay. I was wanting to know if you have any examples you could share with the group about either school-based or community-based conferencing that touched your heart, or anything you want to share with the group.
Sure. I have a whole bunch, but let me see which one I'll pull out. I'll pull this one out. So we had a school-based conference and it was pretty heated. We always have at least maybe 8 to 10 people, as well as the representatives from the school. And it was a young lady that had conflict with another young child, a young girl, as well. And I guess the grandmother and the other parent, they just got real heated and walked out. Ty was there with me as well on that case, and we still stayed there. I was talking to one, he was talking to the other. They came back in. They actually wanted to cancel, and we were like, no. So it all boils down to, once we heard each other, heard the side of the story, got everything simmered down. They came back. It all ended up with the grandmother crying with the other person, and everybody was hugging. I was crying, so I cry sometimes. I tend to cry sometimes in these, and then and everybody was fine after that. Then right before COVID, I had one at a school, and I think we had about Randy was there with me on that one as well. As well as Ty, I believe, and we had like 25 people there. We had to shut down the library. The school got shut down because of the fight. It was just a whole big mess. And all boils down to the cop was there. One grandfather was there saying, my child doesn't do this. And, sometimes we get a little on the defense with our children, and we don't want to hear what they have to say because, hey, we don't know what they do. So I said, you don't know what your child does when you're not there. in in their presence. And then one of the cops was like, well, hey, if I was here, if I had to, I would have written a citation for all of your children. We just left lunch with them. So then that made them be quiet. But it all boils down to everybody got into listening to each other. There was no more conflict with them. And actually, I actually followed up with the principal because that's what I usually do. I follow up with all of those cases. And they said the students did well. They had no more conflict with them. They actually brought their grades up after that as well. So that's all I have.
Thank
I
you
like
so
to
much.
I like to chime in on what Shay was saying because we've been doing these conferences and you'd be amazed at once we have that actual sit down, they don't even know why they're doing half of the things that they're doing. It's a lot of he say, she say, a lot of social media that's involved that creates a lot of this. And a lot of times the people that actually create the problem aren't the ones that get in trouble for it.
Yeah, we do have a lot of that. I'm sorry, chiming back with Ty. Yeah, that is a challenge with them not knowing who said what or who's doing what. So immediately, because of the ones that are doing the loud talking, they're the ones that get blamed for it. But then it's their peers that are doing it, so they don't even get to be a part of it, and the other ones get in trouble from that from those situations. So, but once everybody's heard, and I believe that sometimes we tend to maybe blame others, but once those situations are heard from every party, then it changes up the trajectory of everything. So I believe it gives people the opportunity to give those students an opportunity to be heard, because a lot of times we silence them by suspensions. So, or putting them out, or just saying, putting the blame on them, and not knowing that these students and these children actually have different battles that they fight even at home. So when they come to school, they're like, hey, this is my time to be able to be seen or be heard. Maybe someone will hear my cry. So sometimes I feel like it's like a cry that they're putting out for us to be able to, or us as teachers or leaders can hear, hey, I'm having this challenge at home. What can I do? Can I get help? And sometimes it's a cry for help. And that's what we try to do at times.
Thank you. Any more questions for Shay or Ty? Okay, I do have a question for Isaac. Can you just tell us about how it is for the students or juveniles who are re-entering the system? Can you just give us a little bit of examples or what it is that you specifically do with the re-entry program?
Yes, no problem. So with the reentry program and the youth returning from being in the juvenile services can be a little nerve-wracking, especially for the youth that I've worked with. A lot of them have a real fear of how things are going to be, how they're going to be judged. A lot of them uh, don't feel like it's easy for them to jump straight back into what they've missed because they've been gone for, a couple of months or maybe a year or two. And a lot of them feel like they can't rejoin back into school and things like that. And it's not so much as a lot of people might think, just being like, okay, you're out, let's get you here and there and straight back. It's really sitting with them and hearing how they feel, hearing what they had to go through there and the fears and anxieties they have now. And working with them it's a pleasure to sit there and let them know things will be okay and you can get them back into the system. Like I worked with one um, youth. She was in the program, I believe, for almost a year, back and forth between different ones. And she was so nervous about trying to get to college and school. And it was just take your time, we will get you readjusted back into the community and just let them speak freely and browse on their own. And it'll all come back to them. When you let them take their time instead of just bombarding them with everything, everything moves smoother and they feel a lot better. She got herself back into the community. She started going to community college and taking classes, and she hasn't been back.
It's definitely good to hear those stories that show that how these programs are working. I see that Shay and Ty sometimes work together. Do you also work with them or Randy as well with the mentoring program?
Yes, so I do the mentoring program with Ty. Me and Ty are the ones who plan all the events that we go to. We take them to, like Dr. Brown said, the movies. We take them to Six Flags to let them know that, we can have this fun, even though it's supposed to be, serious mentor, but you have to experience these things to get a broader spectrum on how things should be. I do the community conferencing with Shay and Ty as well in the schools. And Randy does do a lot of things with us as well with mentoring too.
So
We
they
all work
do
collectively.
operate as a team. Randy, I don't know if you want to talk about the DJS kids.
I absolutely do. Good morning, everyone.
You lagging a little bit, Randy.
Randy, you're lagging.
Yes,
Try turning your
kids.
camera off.
They're the ones that have what we call. Am I?
You're a bit better. Keep going. You just muted yourself. Try again.
Okay, can y'all hear me now? Am I
Yes.
good now?
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So what I love about my kids is I get the kids with the full jackets. They already have a record. And my program is court ordered. And however, if they go through my program successfully, then it helps reduce some of the things that they have on their jacket. And I'll give one example, even though I have several. Right now we have 10 kids in the program. We have about 15 kids on the waiting list. And what I love about it is this. I had a young man who had multiple armed robbery charges on his jacket. And instead of coming up with goals that are like, let's make sure that you're treating your peers correctly, or that you know how to get a job and all those things, because he couldn't work because he was on house arrest. What we decided was, hey, how about you not go outside? How about you not rob people? How about you do chores around your house, support your mom? How about you do your homework and help your siblings with their homework? And this young man did a whole 180. He turned his whole life around. Like, he didn't rob. He's graduated from the program now. He has a job at AutoZone, and he got a school. He's going back to regular school because he was going to an alternative school. He's back at his normal school, the regular school in his district now, and life is good. And we set those kind of goals based upon their jacket. And a lot of times what I realized is these kids just need to be felt like they're cared for, and they'll change their whole life. I get the kids with the jackets that say that they're disrespectful and hard to get along with, and I've never had that problem. And it's because me and the mentors show that we care for them, and that's all they really wanted the whole time. So I love all my kids. I get them from all over the county, from Lothian to Brooklyn Park to Annapolis, Pasadena, you name it, I got them. So I just wanted to say that I love doing the work. And it's also good to have someone like Ty, who has so much experience, that can help guide me through some of the things that I needed some guidance on when it comes to dealing with certain individuals and kids. And so we work as a team. It's so beautiful. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
And let me just finish by saying, if you haven't already grasped this is all about trust and relationships. That's what makes a difference for kids every single time. And my staff are trusted in neighborhood, part of neighborhood, and have learned how to build trust with kids. And you can't put price on that. That is, that's the way to do it.
Yes, thank you.
Can
I
I
see.
say something real fast, and I'll be done.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to give Miss Adrian Mickler and Catherine Gray.
Can't hear whoever's
and
talking. I
Monica-
don't know who it is.
It's Ty.
Ty, we can't hear you. I don't know why.
Um,
Can you hear me
we're
now?
able, I can hear you.
Okay.
Maybe it's me.
Well, I want to give Miss Adrian Mickler, Catherine Gray, and also Delmonica a huge shout out. For the years that they've been, behind us doing these programs as well.
Thank you. And I do see that Adrian has her hand up as well.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to comment, and thank you, Ty, for that. One of the things I'm just always amazed at, the creativity. I mean, all through COVID, these children were not let down. They still had the support all through that. They found ways to make it happen. And one of the things that's kind of unique is these are not cookie cutter programs. These are each one child gets each individual attention, and the children get what they need. And, all you have to do is see a mentor with their mentee, and, that's all you need to see is the looks on the faces. It's really incredible. So we really appreciate the programs. I guess the only problem is the numbers are small. We wish we could double them because they're so effective.
Can I say one more thing? And
Of course you can, Shay.
Just a thought. I had another student, and that was in one of our, and Ty knows her. She was kind of like kind of rough, and she didn't want to go to school. She didn't go to class. So what I would do, I would be like, Ty, I'm going to pop up over at the school, and I'm going to go check on her. So I would go check on her, and the guidance counselor would call her down to her office, and I would be sitting there. She wouldn't know I was there, but I would just periodically just show up at the school a lot. And she wasn't going to school. She would miss her classes and everything. I say, I told you. And once she saw me, I say, I told you I was going to pop up on you, because I do ask the parents if I can follow up with them as well, if I feel like they need some extra pushing. So I would go over to the school, and she would see me. At one point, she stopped coming to school, but her guidance counselor told me that she did graduate. She ended up going back to school. She graduated, and that was it. So she just, she liked that I came, because you always have to keep your word with these students. If you say you're going to do something, you have to do it, and you have to keep your word with them. So that was another story for that.
Thank you definitely for sharing. It's good to that you're, following up and trying to make sure that they're staying on the right path. Ms. Hawkins, Monica Hawkins, do you have anything you want to add?
Did. I'm sorry, I'm driving,
Oh,
so
no
I couldn't
problem.
raise my hand. But I did want to echo what Adrian said. Thank you. I'm from Juvenile Services, and as you can imagine, many of our programs that serve our youth have good outcomes. The difference with Dr. Brown and her team is that the trust that is built, as everyone has stated, really makes our youth feel like they're worthy. Um, I wish that I could put into words how thankful I am for the work that they do. I know many of us say, well, why are y'all taking them to the movies? Why are y'all taking them to many of our kids don't get an opportunity to just be a kid. So it's really important. I want to thank you. I'm dying inside that we have 15 on the wait list, Randy, but we got to figure something out. But I really do appreciate you all. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown
More
and your
money,
team.
more money.
Okay.
Monica, thank you for all your support. You really are a fantastic example of a regional director. We really appreciate you. You're always there for us, so thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Is there any other questions? Just trying to check the screens to make sure I'm not missing any hands being raised. All righty, I don't see any more questions. Thank you again, Dr. Brown and your team, for a wonderful presentation on the diversion programs that we have. And from you can tell by your staff how well they work together and how passionate they are about the work that they do. So thank you again for that and letting us, the council know what's been going on. Alrighty, so before we get to the attendee announcements, I wanted to just give you a preview of what's coming up in December. Our next meeting is going to be December 5th. I'm going to be asking for 4 or 5 volunteers to give us an overview of what your agency has been doing between January 1st and let's say November 1st. I did go back to previous minutes from years ago, and they used to have the different representatives give an update to the group about what they're doing. So I'm going to ask for 4 to 5 volunteers. It doesn't have to be you. For example, it doesn't have to be, Dr. Getty from the health department. It could be somebody she designates to give an update. I'm only looking for about a 5 to 10 minute update. Just to say what between January 1st and November 1st, what are some programs related to criminal justice and drug treatment and what have you, whether it be something from the courts, saying the clerk's office had this many criminal cases and this is how we got through the scheduling of these cases and here are the outcomes. Or it could be something from drug treatment court saying we had this many people graduate during this time frame. I'm looking just for more engagement. So I'm hoping that December meeting will be what we're looking for. I'll ask Jen to send an email to you all after this meeting, maybe early next week, just to give it what I'm looking for the next meeting in December. And in the February meeting, I'll probably be asking for updates from another set of 4 to 5 representatives to give me an update on what you're planning to do for 2026. And is there any partnerships that you're planning on doing to help the mission of the CJCC? And I'm going to send also a copy of the executive order just to make sure we kind of level set to see why we're here and our purpose. And I just printed out really quickly. The purpose of the council is to identify and address issues of mutual concern involving law enforcement, judicial and correctional components of the criminal and juvenile justice systems, and to make recommendations to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the systems. And it's also to monitor the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program. So I kind of wanted to just do a quick level set, what I'm going to be looking for December, February, moving on forward. We had the presentation by Judge Sidney Butcher a couple months ago, and he's on the American Bar Association Criminal Justice section. And he did mention that you want to do a little bit more and make sure that we're giving recommendations as required. So I'm hoping by the end of 2026 next year, we have recommendations to give to the incoming county executive, whoever that may be, and something that at the end of the year, maybe a brief report, a brief 5 to 6 recommendations. And then recommendations could be, we need more money, right? Please look for us and to add in the budget for these systems. So I just want to give you a quick preview of what I'm expecting moving forward. With this council. Does anybody have any questions for me before we move into the attendee announcements? All right, and then I'll ask Jen again to send that email next week so people who are not on this meeting can hear and read what exactly I'm trying to do with this council. All right, so do we have any announcements for the group? Just checking for any hands raised. Any community events or any graduations or anything that we should be aware of? All right, I don't see any hands raised. Well, thank you all so much again. It's been a wonderful discussion this morning. And thank you again, Dr. Brown and your team for the presentation, as well as Lieutenant Shire, who had to leave early. As I mentioned before, the next meeting will be Friday, December 5th at 8 a.m. And it's 8:59. I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.